Hey everybody, welcome back to the shop. So I've got this old box. Well, actually I've got two of them that I've had for quite some time, and it's right here, this box. And what I'm thinking is, can I do something to this box that will fancy it up, that'll make it, you know, nicer, prettier? I know it's an old antique, but it's an old toolbox, and I thought, well, maybe I can just add something to it, one or two things, to make it nicer. So I don't know if you can see this. I'll bring it a little closer. You can see that on the corners here, it has these protective brass or copper guards. It's got handles on the end of it. So I'm thinking I'm going to do an inlay here on this surface right here. And I may do it so that it's two-sided, so that when I open the lid, the same exact inlay is on the inside. Might be a little bit of a challenge because there's a recess here, but I think I can pull it off. Now, we have this little tray that was in here. I'm not sure how I could pretty that up. Of course, it needs to be cleaned. Like I said, I've had it forever. But let's see if we can't put an inlay on the face of this and let that be a good place to get started. Now, one of the first challenges to this, as I said, it has these corner pieces on here, is I need to surface this because it's warped. So I need to surface it. I need to figure out how I'm going to hold it on the machine, and that presents a second challenge because I don't have enough height. I can't leave this intact and set it on the machine to cut the inlay. So the first thing we're going to have to do is take off all of the hardware that I can. Those are nailed, these are screws, and those are screws. So I'm pretty confident that I can pull these guys off. That'll free that up. This one, not so much, but I'm not taking that much off of the surface of this. I'm only going to take, you know, a 30 seconds or whatever I can off the top. I'm thinking I can hold this on the mill by possibly putting a board on the face of it and screwing it from the inside to create something that I can clamp on each end, where I can clamp on each end, and pull this thing down flat while at the same time making it extremely rigid on the machine. And then I can cut it. Now this is long grain, and you all know long grain is a pain. So I anticipate errors. I anticipate the loss of things in the male and possibly the female. And I'll show you how we can correct that if we do lose some stuff. So stick with me on this one, because not all inlays come out perfect, but there is ways to make them clean and look good. When they're not perfect, they will be kind of perfect when you get done with the trick that I'll show you here in a little bit. All right, let's take these guys off first. All right, they definitely come off. Now, I wonder where I could put these so I don't lose them. Wish I had a box. I'll get the rest of these off. I'll get these guys off, and we'll take the hinges off, and we'll see if I can come up with some way to hold this thing flat on the machine and hold it still. And I don't know if it matters, but when I took that hinge plate off, or keeper, I put it in this side to keep it straight. I'm going to do the same thing here to keep this side straight. Probably doesn't matter, but I don't want to take any chances. Same thing with these hinges. I'll put the screws. I guess that won't matter because I'm going to leave the hinge connected there. I'm so glad these things come out. All right. That's what we'd be working with. Now we just got to figure out how to hold it flat on the machine and take these other two off before I forget. All right, so here's what I've come up with. I've got these little plates. You saw me cut them on the table saw. They are the same thickness, What I'm going to do is put them on here like this, sticking out. I'm going to screw them down so that this is attached to that. Then when I flip it over, because they're equal and they'll be sticking out like that, I can then take my clamps, or I could even screw them, but I think I'll just use the clamps, and I can pull down on that, which will pull this down, holding everything in place. Now, if I do proceed, if this works out okay, to do the inside, I won't need to worry about this for here because I'm not going to surface off that lip. I will just go to the edge of that lip with the end mill and surface this pocket. That way the clamp can go right on the top like that and hold this side flat. Let me get these guys on here. I'm going to drill some pilot holes through them, countersink them so they're flat, and knock it to the table. Now it's solid. Earlier you saw me go from corner to corner and make my crosshair. That's where the origin is. Now, the last carve I did, I used this 60-degree V-bit. There's no sense in taking that V-bit out to put something else in to find the center when I've got a perfect point right here. So we'll use that bit just to find center of our X and Y, and then we'll switch it out to the quarter-inch end mill, and we'll surface it off. Like that, center. Zero out X and Y, then I can get the touch probe out, and we can go for thickness. All right, so we're nice and flat, and we learned a few things. We learned that whoever made this box must have been having trouble keeping this trim on, or chose a wrong poor angle, because those are nails. Luckily, the design that I've chosen is not going to touch those again, but I'll probably be reaching out to old Cody from Jenny Bits for a new end mill. So just be aware of that when you work with old antiques. There's a possibility you'll find a straight nail. So let's just say I should have probably did this before I continued, but I didn't. You know, sometimes things happen when you don't stop and do what you should do. So probably should have done that before that. There's Peruvian walnut from Peru. So I'm going to take this stick from Peru and I'm going to slice it down the center because I don't need a male piece that's 3/4 of an inch thick. The max I need is a 1/2 inch. So I'll slice this thing right down through the center with the Rikon bandsaw, I'm going to use that marking gauge to help the blade track. But we're going to whack the walnut in half. Just like that. Now we're going to put some glue on these guys. When you clamp down these thin boards, you don't need a tremendous amount of pressure. And if you do put too much pressure, it's going to bow them up in the air like a banana. So light pressure, 3 clamps on the bottom, 2 clamps on the top in opposite directions to make them stay flat. Opposite tension is what we're looking for. I didn't surface these, I didn't plane them, I didn't do anything like that. As soon as I get these guys glued together, I'll run them through the drum sander, or I'll just put them right on the mill and surface them, flip them over, and start cutting the mail in them. Now they are oversized as far as length goes, so that I can put screws in each end and not have to worry about hitting them with the mill. Make your projects an inch or 2 longer. It'll save you a lot of headaches. Cleaning up the male and the female is huge. You have to get it done. And I wanted to show you those little hooks. I got those from Amazon. You can also get them from Harbor Freight. Do yourself another favor and get a set of those. They're not that expensive, and they get into nooks and crannies a whole lot easier. Nooks and crannies? What are we talking about? English muffins? Right out of the gate, I can see that I've lost some of this stuff. Like I said, end grain is a pain. Let's see, there's some right there that I've lost. But stick around, because I'll show you how to fix that so it's almost unnoticeable. The lesson here is do not skimp on the glue. If you skimp on the glue and the pieces fall out, it's going to be very difficult to fix. So spend a little money in the glue and save yourself a headache. That little brush, I get them by the 100 pack on Amazon, I believe, as well. And they're really handy for spreading glue. Normally I would use the drum sander to clean this off, but being face grain, long grain, I wanted more control, so I did it with the palm sander. Alright, so as anticipated, I lost the points because we all know end grain is a pain and face grain is the same. But I told you that I would show you how to fix this so that it is not perfect, but it'll be good enough that if you don't point it out to somebody, they probably won't see it. So how do we do it? First thing we do is blow out all of these little holes with compressed air. Then we take one of these finish sanders and collect sawdust that is exactly that species. So we're not going to sand on top of there. We're going to take some of this Peruvian walnut, and I'm just going to sand and sand and sand and sand until I get dust buildup in this container. Then I'm going to mix that dust with some glue, and I'm going to push it into each one of these guys, let it dry, and sand it out. And unless somebody points it out, or you point it out to your customer, 99.9, they're not going to notice. Little glue, make a little slurry, push it into the holes, bing, bang, boom, you should be good. And it doesn't take much glue. And those little points will just magically disappear. And let's get the poop off my fingers before somebody starts talking around here. So I want to try and dress this up a little bit. I don't like these nail lines, so I'm going to put a frame around the top of this all the way around as an accent piece with the walnut. And then I'll see what I can do with these to maybe hide them after that. The first thing we're going to do is cut this a little thinner. Right down the middle. Give that old blade something to work from. The back side of this is rough. Bought myself some marking knives off of Amazon to give it a try. I'm not sure how I feel about those things yet. I can't seem to get them to track right. Any suggestions? Put them in the comments below. Tell me how to use one of those knives. I know it's beveled on one side, flat on the other. It doesn't seem to want to track the way I think it should. Of course, practice makes perfect, I'm sure. Everybody says it's more accurate. Of course, my old eyes can't see the little bitty hairline anyway, so I'm just guessing. I took a whole bunch of time measuring and cutting those miters and making sure everything was right. I was going to put an overhang on the lip, create a lip on this lid. And then I got working on it and I said, how am I going to put those corners back on if there's an overhang? So we had to slice them down, make them shorter, so that the trim piece is going to be flush with the outside edge all the way around. I'm using Titebond 3 here, not sponsored. It gives me a little more time to play around here and get things adjusted. And then one of the things I like to do when I'm working with miters is try to put the first one on nice and straight and clamp it to the bench, to the project, which you'll see me do here in a little bit. It just makes everything easier to handle and control. Obviously, we're going to put these finishing nails in to lock everything down. But once I have this thing where I want it, and it was warped a little bit, the box is warped. I had to bow that piece out a little bit to make it flush. But like I said, I'll pull this thing forward and I'll put the clamps on it to hold everything still so that I can size everything up. Because when you're trying to put this together and you're pushing on stuff and everything is moving, it's kind of a nuisance. So like I said, we'll turn it around. I'll put the long parallel piece on, making it flush with the front of the box. And then I can put the clamps on and hold it in place. I put this one on, and before you scream at me, I'm going to fix it. I'm not going to clamp down too hard and punch a round hole in the top of that trim piece. I just steadied it. And then we're pulling it back on the other side. I'll use the hand clamp, what we used to call turkey call clamps, because when you squeeze them, they sound like a turkey call. Don't need the shim on this side. And as you can see, I'm going to loosen this back up and do what I was supposed to do, which is put that little blocky on there so that I don't ruin my trim. I'll lock everything down, and then I can make sure that the two short pieces are in exactly the right spot before I nail them and glue them. Just another little trick that the Hinkle shop does. It works on nail heads too. What nails? All right, let's see what it looks like when we hit it with a little bit of poly. Looks like I need to poly. Okay, so there you have it. An old box made new again. And can you combine hardwood with softwood? You certainly can. As always, long grain, face grain is a pain. I hope you got something out of this video. I hope you learned something. Remember, don't throw away your projects, your inlay projects, if your little bitty points and stuff are broken off. Make a slurry of the wood that the inlay species is. Mash it in there, and you'll be good to go. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.